I drove through the rain-slicked streets of Macon, Georgia, my knuckles white on the steering wheel of that beat-up Ford pickup I'd bought with my first parole check, only to find the sold sign stabbed into my front yard like a goddamn declaration of war. My brother Jake's signature flourish, no doubt, because who else would have the balls to auction off the family home while I was locked up in federal lockdown for his screw-up? The realtor, a peroxide blonde named Tammy with a drawl thick as molasses, handed me the closing papers under the porch light, her painted nails flipping pages like she was dealing blackjack, and I laughed, a sharp, bitter bark that echoed off the empty walls, because she didn't know the deed was a forgery, and the feds had slapped a preservation order on this rotting pile 2 years back, turning our cursed inheritance into untouchable history. But the kicker, the one that twisted the knife deeper than the 12 months I'd served for Jake's embezzlement scam, was the eviction notice taped to the door. Vacate immediately or face trespassing charges. Love, your favorite brother. That night, I didn't sleep. The house, my house, the one Mama left me after the cancer ate her hollow, creaked like it was breathing, the floorboards groaning under ghosts we'd both buried. I'd come back to Macon expecting weeds and dust, maybe a leaky roof from the last hurricane, but not this. Not Jake stripping it bare, selling off the antique oak furniture Graham had smuggled from Atlanta during the Depression, hawking the clawfoot tub like it was scrap. I'd called him from the prison payphone 100 times, whispering through the static about holding the line, about how I'd take the fall for that money he siphoned from the county co-op, 200 grand in farm subsidies meant for struggling vets like Dad had been. Just keep the home fires burning, Jake, I'd said, my voice cracking over the line. It's all we've got left. He'd sworn on Mama's Bible, sworn on the faded tattoo of her name across his forearm. And I'd believed him, because that's what sisters do in families like ours, patch the holes, swallow the shame. The feds had come down hard after the audit, badges gleaming under the fluorescent lights of the co-op office, and Jake, with his easy grin and quicker lies, had pointed the finger at me. She handled the books, agent. Always did. I'd stared at him across the interrogation table, his eyes darting like a cornered possum, and when they slapped the cuffs on, I didn't fight. Not because I was innocent. Hell, I'd known about the skim for months, turning a blind eye while he blew it on poker nights and that redhead from the diner, but because ratting him out would have gutted Mama before the chemo could finish the job. So I signed the plea, served the time, and dreamed of this porch every night in my 6x8 cell. Now, 2 weeks out, and the place was a husk. I kicked open the door, unlocked of course, because Jake never met a security chain he couldn't jimmy, and the smell hit me first. Stale cigarette smoke mixed with the metallic tang of fresh paint, like they were already prepping for the new owners. The living room was gutted, walls stripped to studs, sunlight slicing through like accusations. I found the first clue in the kitchen, a crumpled real estate flyer wedged under the fridge, glossy photos of potential, with bay windows and granite counters where Mama's Formica had chipped from years of family suppers. Price tag, $450,000. Jake's cut? Probably enough to clear his bookie debts and then some. I crumpled it in my fist, the paper rasping like dry leaves, and that's when the phone buzzed. Unknown number, Macon area code. Savannah? That you, darlin'? Jake's voice, smooth as bourbon, slithered through the speaker. I could picture him in that dive bar on Mulberry Street, nursing a Bud Light, his flannel shirt untucked over a paunch that hadn't seen a plow since Dad's heart attack. You son of a bitch, I hissed, my boot heels clicking on the linoleum as I paced. You sold it. My house. While I was counting days in that hellhole for you. A pause, then his chuckle, low, disbelieving, like I'd caught him jaywalking. Ah, come on, save. Times are tough. The bank's been hounding me about the back taxes, and that developer from Atlanta? He's offering top dollar. Figured you'd thank me when you see the check. Thank you? For forging my signature? For lying to the county clerk? My voice rose, echoing off the empty cabinets. I yanked open the junk drawer. Still there, thank God, with Mama's recipe cards yellowed and curled, and pulled out the old .38 Dad kept for rattlesnakes. Not that I'd use it. Not yet. You read the fine print, Jake? That historical marker they slapped on the gate last year? This ain't just a house. It's federal protected now, part of the Underground Railroad Registry. Feds own the dirt under our feet. Silence. Then, a scrape, like he'd set his glass down hard. Bullshit. That's just some tourist trap rumor. I checked with the lawyer. Your lawyer? The one who moonlights for the meth heads down in Perry. I laughed again, colder this time. Call the feds, Jake. Ask about the surveyor, who came sniffing around after you forgot to pay the utilities. They dug up the root cellar last spring. Found the tunnel. The one great-grandpa, Isaiah, used to ferry runaways north in '63. He cursed, a string of epithets that would have made Dad wash his mouth with lye. You hid that from me? All these years you knew about that shit and didn't say a word. I hid a lot for you, brother dear. My grip tightened on the phone, the plastic creaking. Like how I buried the evidence of your little side hustle before the auditors could trace it back. But this is where it ends. Get your ass over here. We're undoing this. He hung up. Just like that. No voudriez, no pli. I tossed the phone on the counter and sank to the floor, back against the fridge, the cold seeping through my jeans. The rain picked up outside, drumming the roof like impatient fingers. How had we gotten here? Jake and me, thick as thieves in pigtails, racing bikes down Peach Street, stealing peaches from Old Man Hargrove's orchard. He'd always been the charmer, the one who talked us out of trouble, while I was the fixer, the one who learned to hotwire the truck at 14 so we could joyride to the river. But charm turns to con when the stakes rise, and Jake's had been climbing since Dad's casket lowered into that red clay plot. By dawn, I'd pieced together the trail. A quick call to my old cellmate, Rita, now working dispatch at the sheriff's office, confirmed the closing. Jake had posed as power of attorney, citing my incarceration as incapacity. The buyer? Some shell company out of Savannah, fronts for a casino developer eyeing the riverfront. They planned to raise it for condos, luxury living with a nod to history. Nod my ass. I'd seen their kind before, slick suits turning soul into square footage. I spent the morning in the attic, dust motes dancing in the slanted light, sifting through boxes Jake hadn't bothered to loot. There it was, the deed, tucked in Mama's hope chest, stamped with the federal seal from the National Register of Historic Places. Property ineligible for alienation without NPS approval, it read, in legalese that might as well have been Greek. But the real secret? The one I'd guarded like a loaded gun? It wasn't just the tunnel. It was what Isaiah had hidden in the false wall. Ledgers from the co-op, predating Dad's tenure, showing payoffs to local Pauls for water rights. Bribes that tied back to the same syndicate Jake had tangled with, the one that got him in the embezzlement mess to begin with. I'd burned the copies before turning myself in, but the originals? Still bricked up, waiting for a fool to crack it open. Jake showed around noon, rumbling up in his F-150, the one with the Confederate flag sticker peeling off the bumper. He looked older than 35, lines etched deep around his eyes, stubble silvering his jaw. Save, he said, stepping onto the porch without knocking, hands shoved in his pockets like a kid caught filching cookies. Let's talk this out. Family, right? I met him in the doorway, arms crossed, the deed clutched behind my back. Family doesn't sell the roof over your head for a poker buy-in. Who's the developer, Jake? The Carters? That mobbed-up crew from the coast. His face twitched, just a flicker, but I caught it, the tell he'd had since we were kids, when he'd bluff a go fish. Ain't like that. They're legit. And the money. Hell, it's enough to start fresh. For both of us. Us. I stepped aside, letting him in, the floor protesting under his boots. You mean after you stiffed the feds on restitution? Or after you blew half on that trailer park floozy? He whirled, eyes flashing. Don't you judge me, Savannah Grace. You think prison was a picnic for you? Try dodging collection men with a bum knee from the mill. This house was sinking us, taxes, repairs. I did what I had to. Like you did with the co-op books? The words hung heavy, the air thickening like before a squall. He froze, then deflated, slumping against the banister. That was one time. Alone. And you. I covered your ass. Signed the confession. Served the stretch. I thrust the deed at him, the paper crackling. Read it. Out loud. He scanned it, lips moving silently, color draining from his face. Federal. Preservation.
Shit.
He looked up, pleading now.
Okay, fine.
We'll contest it. Get a lawyer. But the deposit's non-refundable. We lose that. We're back to square one. Square one was better than this betrayal. I turned away, throat tight, staring out at the yard where Dad's old swing set rusted in the kazoo. Why, Jake? Really? After everything? He sighed, rubbing his neck. The Carters. They leaned on me. Said if I didn't deliver, they'd spill about the old ledgers. The ones you burned. Thought selling quick would square us. My blood ran cold. The ledgers. He knew? All this time? You used me. Again. Not like that. He reached for my arm, but I jerked back. Save, please. Blood's thicker. Is it? I whispered, the words tasting like ash. Then prove it. Help me fight this. Or get out. He nodded, slow, but his eyes, God, those eyes, held the lie I knew too well. That night, as he crashed on the couch, I lay awake in Mama's room, the federal stamp burning a hole in my mind. Revenge wasn't a word I'd uttered in years, not since the cell block whispers of shankings and snitches. But as thunder rolled over the Okmulgee River, I felt it stir, a dark current, pulling me under. Jake had sold more than bricks and mortar. He'd sold the last thread holding us together. And federal protection, or not, some debts demanded collection. The next week blurred into a frenzy of calls and caffeine. I hit the county records office first, a squat brick building downtown that smelled of mildew and microwave popcorn, where the clerk, a wiry woman named Dolores with cat-eye glasses, squinted at the deed like it had bitten her. Well, honey, this here's ironclad. NPS flagged it after that archaeologist poked around. Says the tunnel's authentic. Links to the Macon station on the railroad. I can't touch it without jumping through DC hoops. Hoops I plan to tighten, I told her, copying files until my fingers cramped. Back home, Jake played the penitent, brewing Folgers and muttering about appeals, but I caught him on the phone twice, whispered conversations in the garage, voice low and urgent. Yeah, the sister's onto the Fed angle. No, I can handle it. Double the cut if you stall the demo. The Carters. I'd pieced it together from Rita's off-record chatter, a family of developers with ties to the port rackets, laundering cash through heritage projects that never saw daylight. Jake had dipped into their pot before, small-time favors for co-op kickbacks, but this? Selling the house was his Hail Mary, trading our history for a clean slate. Or so he thought. I confronted him over takeout ribs from Pittman's greasy, vinegary, the way Mama liked, spread on the card table in the dining room. Who's on the other end, Jake? The suits from Savannah? He wiped sauce from his chin, eyes on his plate. Business associates. Nothing you need. I need the truth. For once. My fork clattered down, sauce splattering like blood. Ironic, given the no-gore rule of my revenge fantasies. You flip for them? Sell me out to save your skin. It's not flipping. It's surviving. He met my gaze then, defiant.
You were gone, Save.
Locked up for my mistake. Yeah, but who paid the mortgage? Who kept the lights on while bill collectors camped on the porch?
Me. And now?
This deal gets us out. You get half. Buy a condo in town, start over. Start over on lies? I shoved my chair back, the legs screeching. Those ledgers you threatened to spill? They're gone because I torched them. To protect you. And the tunnel? That's not just history. It's leverage. Feds could use it to trace the old bribes, link M to the Carters' granddaddies. You hand this house over. You hand them the keys to burying it all. His fork hovered, then dropped. You don't get it. They know about the tunnel. Pressured me to sell quiet, before the surveyors dig deeper. If I back out now, they'll what? Rough you up? Like they did Dad before the heart attack. The words slipped out, venomous, a secret I'd nursed since the funeral. Dad hadn't died clean, bruises under his collar, Whispers of death settled. Jake's eyes widened. Genuine shock or good acting? You think?
No.
That was the mill accident. But doubt crept in, cracking his facade. He stood, pacing to the window, rain sheeting the glass.
Fine.
We fight it together. Call your Fed contact. I had one. Harlan, an old army buddy turned NPS bureaucrat in Atlanta, the kind of pencil pusher who owed me for pulling him out of a ditch in Kandahar. His voice on the line that afternoon was all drawl and discretion. Savannah Reeves? Been a minute. What's this about the Macon property? I laid it out. The forgery, the sale, the shadows lurking. He whistled low. Protected, all right. But contested deeds mean court, and developers like the Carters? They lawyer up fast. You got proof of fraud. Enough to start. I glanced at Jake, eavesdropping from the hall, his face a mask. And Harlan? Dig into the tunnel records. There might be more than abolitionists down there. We hung up, and Jake clapped my shoulder, too hard, too eager.
See?
Teamwork. But as he headed out for supplies, I tailed him in the Ford, headlights off, heart pounding like a bass drum at a revival. He didn't go to the hardware store. No, straight to a warehouse on the industrial strip, floodlights harsh against the dusk, where a black Escalade idled like a predator. I parked a block away, slipping through chain-link shadows, the Georgia mud sucking at my boots. Voices carried on the humid air, Jake's, placating. She's digging. Yeah, but I can stall. Just need another week on the closing. A deeper rumble replied, laced with threat. Week's up tomorrow, Reese. Or we visit your sister. Make it personal. Reese. Our mother's maiden name. They knew me. Knew everything. I crouched behind a pallet of rebar, pulse thundering, as Jake nodded, climbed into the SUV, and peeled out. Betrayal. Round 2. But this time, I wouldn't swallow it. I'd choke them on it. The days stretched taut as a hangman's rope. Harlan's team descended midweek, 2 archaeologists in khakis and a Fed in a windbreaker, cordoning off the yard with yellow tape that fluttered like surrender flags. Neighbors gawked from porches, sipping sweet tea and murmuring about that Reeves girl back from the pen. Jake played the outraged homeowner, hollering about eminent domain over the phone to anyone who'd listen, but I saw the sweat beading his brow, the way he'd vanished for hours, returning reeking of bourbon and regret. We bunked in the house, him on the couch, me in Mama's room, tension coiling like smoke from his endless camels. One night, after the crew packed up, leaving the root cellar half-excavated and buzzing with floodlights, he cornered me in the kitchen. This is ruining us, save. The Carters called, said if we don't sign off, they'll sue for breach. Tie us up in court till we're beggars.
Latching.
I stirred instant coffee, the spoon clinking like chains. Better broke than bought. His hand slammed the counter, rattling the mug. Easy for you to say. You got nothing to lose, no wife, no kids dreamin' of college. I do. This house? It's our curse, not our legacy. Dad hated it, hiding those secrets like they were sins. Secrets that kept bread on the table. I faced him, inches apart, our breaths mingling, siblings, strangers. Like how I kept your ass out of stripes. Or, did you forget the plea deal? The one where I confessed to your wire fraud. Guilt flickered, then hardened. You chose that. Hero complex or whatever.
But me?
I'm done playing martyr. He grabbed my wrist, not hard, but firm, his grip the same one that had pulled me from the river at 10. Sign the waiver. Let the feds buy it out. We split the pot. Vanished to Florida. Start clean. Clean? I wrenched free, heat rising. With blood money? From men who broke Dad. He flinched. You got proof? Not yet. But the tunnel whispered promises. That afternoon, alone while Jake ran errands, I descended the ladder they'd unearthed, damp earth walls, lantern light dancing on bricks stamped 1862. The false panel gave with a pry bar, dust choking my throat as I extracted the strongbox, leather-bound ledgers, brittle as autumn leaves, entries in Grandpa Isaiah's spidery hand. Payoffs to sheriffs, routes for cargo that blurred the line between runaways and rum runners. And there, in the margin of 47, Carter Sr., 5K for silence on water scam. Jackpot. But as I surfaced, coughing grit, headlights swept the drive. Not Jake's truck, a sleek Lincoln, disgorging 2 suits and a guy built like a fridge. The Carter's enforcer, no doubt. I bolted the door, phone in hand, dialing Harlan as fists pounded wood. Reeves' residence. Open up or we make you.
Harlan's voice crackled. Fait en route.
Stall. I yelled back, voice steady as steel. Properties federal. Trespass at your peril. Laughter, low and mean. Your brother's already sold the peril, sweetheart. Time to negotiate. The door shuttered. I gripped the .38, unloaded, a bluff, but my mind raced to darker tools. The gas line Dad had jury-rigged. The cellar vents. Controversial? Hell yes. But betrayal's a slow poison. Revenge, the antidote. Sirens wailed distant as the wood splintered.
Jake?
Where was he? The twist hit like a gut punch. He'd flipped again, sold me out for a bigger cut. As the suits breached, I lit the match, not to burn, but to illuminate. Flashbang from Rita's stash, blinding light filling the hall. They cursed, stumbling, and I vaulted the banister, ledgers under arm, out the back into the night. Harlan's team arrived in a squeal of tires, badges flashing, cuffing the intruders as I panted in the azaleas. Got him, he said, clapping my back. And the docks? Ironclad case against the sail. But Jake? Vanished. His truck gone, a note on the dash. Sorry, sis. Had to choose. Checks in the mail. Use it wise. Rage boiled, pure and clarifying. The climax wasn't destruction. It was exposure. I fed the ledgers to the feds anonymously, watching from afar as indictments rained. Carter's for fraud, Jake for forgery and conspiracy. The house? Preserved, a museum now. Tourists snapping pics of the tunnel while locals whispered of the Reeves curse. He surfaced months later, in a dive motel off I-75, haggard and hunted, cornered by marshals. I could have walked away, let karma clip his wings. But blood's a tether, twisted as it is. I bailed him out, anonymous wire from a friend, with a single condition. Confess. On tape, for the DA. Controversial? Damn right. Saving the devil who damned me, dividing the town between foolish mercy and poetic justice. We met one last time on the porch, the federal plaque gleaming under magnolia shade. Why? He rasped, free but fractured. Because ending you ends us. I handed him a bus ticket to nowhere.
Go.
Don't come back. He boarded at dawn, silhouette fading in exhaust. Happy ending? Tragic?
You tell me. Me?
I locked the door, the house whole again, secret sealed. But in the quiet, I wonder, did I avenge or just prolong the bleed? The museum opening was a farce, ribbon cutting under a sky bruised purple by storm clouds, local bigwigs in seersucker suits toasting with champagne flutes that looked absurd against the peeling gingerbread trim. I stood at the edge of the crowd, nursing a plastic cup of sweet tea that tasted like regret, watching as the mayor droned on about preserving our shared heritage, without a hint of irony. Shared? This house had been my prison long before the feds turned it into a diorama of abolitionist valor. Jake's shadow lingered in every beam, every creak, but he'd slithered off to whatever hole a rat like him digs when the trap snapped shut. Harlan found me there, his NPS polo stretched over a belly earned from desk lunches, clapping a hand on my shoulder. You did good, Save. Ledgers tied it all up. Carters are singing like canaries to avoid RICO. Your brother's plea? Gold. Reduced sentence to probation.
Good.
The word tasted flat. Probation meant Jake walking free, same as always, while I nursed the scars. And the house. Ours now. Tours start next week. You get lifetime access. Curator perks if you want 'em. He grinned, all teeth, but his eyes held the pity I hated. Ever think of writing a book? The woman who saved Macon's soul? I snorted, draining the tea. Soul's overrated. I'd settle for a quiet porch without the ghosts. He left me to the dispersing crowd, and I slipped inside, the air cool and musty, laced with the new mint scent of interpretive plaques. The tunnel exhibit was the star, glass cases holding replicas of lanterns and quilts, a holographic map tracing escape routes north. But they hadn't touched the false wall. Federal orders, Harlan said, pending further sensitivity review. Sensitivity. Code for the bribes, the rum, the gray areas Isaiah had navigated to keep the farm afloat. I traced the bricks with gloved fingers, the mortar rough under my calluses, and felt the pull again, that dark itch for more than preservation. Jake's check had arrived a week after his vanishing act. $50,000, half the deposit, wired from an offshore account that screamed Carter cleanup. Enough to fix the roof, pay off Rita's legal fees for the forgery suit. I'd burned it instead, literally, in a metal drum out back, flames licking high as a bonfire on the 4th. Controversial? Try arson adjacent in a drought-prone state. But money from betrayal taints everything it touches. Better ash than accessory. Rita picked me up that evening, her cruiser idling at the curb, lights off but engine humming like impatience. You look like hell, chica. Museum gig, not your speed. More like a wake without the whiskey. I slid into the passenger seat, the vinyl creaking. Rita, ex-Marine, built like she could bench a Buick, had been my lifeline in the joint, trading commissary smokes for stories of the outside. Now, she was sheriff's deputy, badge pinned over a heart tattooed with her kids' names. She pulled onto the highway, radio crackling with chatter about a B&E downtown. Heard from your prodigal brother? Radio silence. Probation officer says he's in Biloxi, rehabbing at some casino. I stared at the passing billboards, golden arches, gun shops, Jesus billboards promising salvation for a tithe. Figures. Sin's central suits him. You bailed him.
Why?
Her glance was sharp, no judgment. Just the cop's probe. Because ending him ends me. The words echoed my porch confession, but saying it aloud twisted the knife. And because the feds needed his full coup on the Carters. Mercy was leverage. She hummed, non-committal, turning onto my street. The street, lined with shotgun houses and pickup trucks on blocks. Leverage cuts both ways. Word is, the family's not done. Eldest Carter's son, Vince? He's out on bond, sniffing around town, asking about loose ends. My gut clenched. Vince Carter, slick as axle grease, heir to the empire, the one who'd schmoozed Jake at co-op fundraisers with tales of yacht parties. I'd met him once at Mama's funeral, his handshake clammy, condolences laced with let's talk business sometime. Business. Like Dad's accident hadn't been a warning. Loose ends like me? Like the ledgers. She parked, killing the engine. You stir a hornet's nest, save. Hornets don't forget. I nodded, stepping out into the humid night, fireflies winking like conspirators. The house loomed, its new plaque glinting. Reeves House, Beacon of Freedom, 1840 to 1865. Beacon my ass. More like a black hole, sucking in secrets and spitting out ruin. Sleep came fitful, dreams of tunnels collapsing, Jake's laugh echoing as dirt rained down. I woke to a knock at dawn. Insistent, not the mailman shuffle. Through the peephole, a kid, maybe 20, in a hoodie too big, shifting foot to foot. Ms. Reeves? Package from your brother. I cracked the door, chain on, .38 in my waistband, loaded this time, Rita's gift. He thrust a manila envelope, no return address, and bolted for a waiting sedan. Inside, photos. Me at the museum, Harlan's hand on my shoulder. Rita's cruiser outside the co-op. And a note, Jake's scrawl. They're watching. Get out while you can. Panic spiked, then settled into cold resolve. He wasn't warning. He was warning me off, buying time for his own escape. I called Harlan. No answer. Voicemail full of bureaucratic BS.
Rita.
On shift, but her text buzzed back. Carter tail confirmed. Stay frosty. Frosty.
Right.
I packed a go bag, ledgers, photocopies, Mama's locket, the deed, and hit the road by noon, Ford eating miles toward Biloxi. The drive was a blur of waffle houses and welcome signs, AM radio preaching fire and brimstone. Jake's motel was a roach trap off the beach strip, neon vacancy, buzzing like a migraine. I found his room by the truck, plates from White Castle littering the lot. He answered shirtless, beer in hand, eyes bloodshot.
So?
Christ, what are you? I shoved past, envelope in fist. Photos.
From you.
Who's they? He shut the door, glancing over his shoulder like a fugitive, which he was. Carter's. Vince's crew. They think you held back on the ledgers some page about a land grant they want buried. I gave everything.
Lie.
I'd skimmed a copy for insurance, hidden in a safety deposit box under Mama's name. Then why the tales? He paced the shag carpet, belly jiggling. I cut a deal, testify low, get witness protection. But they flipped the script, said you'd renege. Me? Rage flared. You sold the house. Flipped on me twice. Now this. It was survival. He whirled, face flushing. You with your high horse playing saint. Dad did the same. Took Carter bribes to keep the farm, then drank himself dead. I learned from him. You're blind. The slap echoed, my palm on his cheek, red blooming. He staggered, then lunged, grabbing my arms. Don't you get it? We're the same. Cursed blood. I need him, hard, dropping him wheezing. Cursed? Or cowards? I'm ending this. Tonight. He laughed, bitter, clutching his gut.
How?
Feds won't touch the Carters without more. And Vince? He's got the sheriff in pocket, your pal Rita's boss. The twist landed like a sucker punch. Rita's warnings. Too convenient? No. She'd die before flipping. But doubt-seated, dark and divisive. I zip-tied his wrists with motel cords, his own paranoia kit, and dragged him to the truck. You're coming home. Testifi brupe. Or I dropped the insurance copy to the DA myself. Biloxi to Macon. 6 hours of silence, his sullen glares in the rear view. We hit town at midnight, the house dark, museum tape flapping. Inside, the tunnel called, deeper excavations now, floodlights humming. I shoved him down the ladder. Remember this? Where it started. He stumbled, cursing, but froze at the false wall, gaping now, empty but for echoes. What are you? My phone buzzed. Rita. Save? Vince's at the co-op. Armed. Says he's got Harlan. Leverage. The climax crested, decisions fracturing like fault lines. Call the cops, trust Rita, risk the flip, or go alone. Gun blazing into controversy? I chose the gray. Untied Jake, handed him the .38. Your mess. Clean it. His eyes, mirror of mine, held the debate. Brother or betrayer? He took it, nodded, and climbed. Dawn broke as sirens wailed, Vince cuffed in the gravel, Harlan safe but shaken. Jake? He walked into the station voluntary, full confession spilling like catharsis. Ending? He got house arrest, in the museum, ironic twist.
Me?
I sold the air rights to the feds, pocketed clean cash, bought a cabin upstate. Happy? Debatable. The tunnel's sealed, but secrets? They echo forever. Who's right? You decide. The cabin was a far cry from Macon's humidity, a squat log affair in the Blue Ridge foothills, pine-scented air crisp enough to sharpen the edges of my thoughts. I traded the porch swing for a rocker on a deck overlooking mist-shrouded valleys, the kind of view that promised solitude but delivered only amplified silence. 3 months since the raid on the co-op, since Vince Carter's empire cracked like an eggshell under federal hammers and Jake's house arrest had morphed into community service. Tour guide at the museum, spinning yarns about Isaiah's heroism to school groups who yawned through field trips. I'd visited once, watching from the shadows as he gestured at the tunnel display, his voice steady but eyes hollow, searching the crowd for me. I hadn't stayed. Rita's letters came weekly, handwritten on sheriff stationery, updates in her blocky script. Vince flipped on the old man. Whole clans relocating to Aruba. Harlan's up for promotion. Miss your ugly mug. No mention of Jake, but the subtext screamed, "Heal, girl. Don't let the bastards grind you."
Grind.
As if betrayal was a millstone you could shrug off like a bad debt. I'd started writing. Not a book, Harlan's pipe dream, but a journal, leather-bound like the ledgers, pages filling with the unsaid. The night I need Jake in that Biloxi flop, the slap that still stung my palm, the moment I handed him the gun, decisions that divided me cleaner than any judge's gavel. Was it mercy, arming the devil? Or madness, trusting the flipper one last flip? The feds praised it as strategic de-escalation, but in the quiet hours, when coyotes yowled outside the cabin, I wondered if I'd just prolonged the poison. The call came on a Tuesday, rain pattering the tin roof like impatient Morse. Unknown number, but the prefix was Macon's. Savannah Reeves? A woman's voice clipped, official, probation officer, I figured.
Yeah.
Who's this? Detective Laura Klein, GBI. Your brother's skipped. Violated terms, crossed state lines without clearance. Last pinged in Chattanooga, holed up with a known associate. Carter's cousin. My rocker stilled, tea steaming forgotten on the arm. Skipped. After the confession, the deal, the redemption I'd scripted for him. How long? 48 hours. We're mobilizing, but he left this. A pause, then a photo texted. Jake's scrawl on a napkin. Tell save. Blood's thicker than ink. Sorry ain't enough.
G.
Thicker than ink. The plea bargain's fine print. The lies he'd signed away. Rage surged, hot and familiar, but laced now with something sharper. Disappointment, maybe, or the ache of final severance. Send cords. I'll help. Save, stay clear. This is personal. I hung up, already packing. The drive south was a descent, mountains giving way to Piedmont flats, billboards shifting from craft breweries to base boats. Chattanooga, Tennessee River town, all bridges and bourbon, the kind of place Jake would have charmed a bartender for free pours. I hit the motel by dusk, Riverside Inn, neon flickering over potholed parking, the air thick with fried catfish and regret. The room was trashed, drawers yanked, mattress slashed, Jake's cologne lingering like a ghost fart. Klein met me there, pantsuit crisp against the squalor, badge glinting. You shouldn't be here. Neither should he. I scanned the debris. Empty mini-fridge, a half-smoked Camel crushed on the carpet. Under the bed, a burner phone, screen cracked but alive. I powered it, text scrolling. Meet at the dock. Bring the drive. C. C for Carter. The cousin, low-level fixer, out on technicality. Jake hadn't skipped for freedom. He'd skipped for one last score. The drive. USB, no doubt, with whatever scraps he'd held back from the feds. Insurance like mine. Klein snatched the phone. Evidence. UID the contact. Enough. I stepped out, rain slicking the lot, and hot-wired a beater Chevy from the far row. Skills from juvie joyrides. Rusty but reliable. The docks were a mile down, fog rolling off the Tennessee like smoke from a fresh grave. I parked in shadows, .38 tucked in my boot, moving silent as a heron through stacks of shipping containers tagged with graffiti prayers. Their voices carried, Jake's drawl, placating, the cousin's gravel, impatient. The drive, Reese. Or we float you like your old man. Dad. Again. I crept closer, heart hammering, peering through a rusted gap. Jake, backed against a crate, hands up, face gaunt under sodium lights. The cousin, burly, tattooed necks, held a Glock loose, casual threat. Easy, Roy. It's got what you need. Emails from Vince's server, the offshore wires. Enough to bury the Fed's case, get him a mistrial. Roy snatched the drive, smirking. And your cut? Beach house in Cancun. Jake hesitated, that telltale twitch. Half. The rest for my sister. Clean slate. Liar. The drive was bait, virus, probably, to fry the cousin's network. Jake's flip, version infinity. Play both sides, collect from the fallout. Roy plugged it in, laptop whirring, then cursed as blue screens flared. You double-crossing. Gunshot. Muffled, silencer hush. Roy crumpled, drive sparking in the puddle. Jake bolted, straight toward my hide, eyes wild.
So?
That you. I stepped out, .38 leveled. Predictable. He skidded, hands raised. Heard your truck. Knew you'd come. Rain plastered his hair, mixing with sweat. It was a setup for them, not me.
Bull.
But doubt gnawed. Roy's body twitched, grown low.
Alive.
Klein's team? Or Carter cleanup? Why run? After everything? Fear. He dropped to his knees, mud splashing. The confession. It named names. Low level, but they're connected. And you handing me the gun that night? It broke something. Made me see we're poison. Poison you peddle. I lowered the gun, controversial mercy number whatever. Sirens wailed distant. Klein. Closing in.
Go.
Last chance. But leave the family trade behind. He stood, slow, eyes searching mine, mirror fractured. Blood's thicker, save. But maybe not enough. He vanished into fog, footsteps fading. Roy stirred as feds swarmed, Klein cuffing him amid questions I dodged. Your brother? Gone. Ending? Open. I drove north, cabin waiting, journal heavier. Revenge isn't a knot tied tight. It's a noose that loosens, leaving you swinging in the wind. Right or wrong? Debate rages in my rocker. Tea cold. Fall crept into the mountains like a thief, leaves turning crimson and gold, the kind of beauty that mocks your mess. I'd added a wood stove to the cabin, chopping sessions therapy, axe biting birch with satisfying thwacks that drown the what-ifs. Jake's vanishing in Chattanooga had bought him a fugitive tag, posters in post offices from Knoxville to Key West, but no sightings. Rita's letters tapered. Trail cold. Focus on you. Focus. As if Betrayal's echo could be tuned out like static. Harlan visited once, khakis rumpled from the drive, bearing NPS swag. A mug emblazoned, preserve the past. We hiked a trail, him puffing, me scanning for tales out of habit. The museum's a hit, he said, pausing at a overlook. Your brother's exhibit? Pulls crowds. They think he's a hero. Hero. I spat the word, kicking a pine cone. Last I saw, he was kneeling in blood, begging for scraps. Harlan winced. The cousin lived, testified. Bolstered the case. Carter's our toast. He lit a pipe, tobacco scent nostalgic. You saved more than a house, save. You unraveled a web.
Web.
Sticky, spun from Dad's generation, binding us all. But unraveling leaves threads, loose ends that snag. Like the safety deposit box in Macon, key burning a hole in my pocket. I'd driven down twice, staring at the brass plaque without entering, cowardice or caution. The decision came unbidden, on a crisp November morning, when frost etched the windows. I loaded the Ford, radio tuned to bluegrass laments, and hit the bank by opening. The box yielded grudgingly, the skimmed ledger copy, pages brittle, plus a yellowed envelope, Mama's hand unopened. For Savannah, when ready. Heart-thudding, I slid it in the parking lot, exhaust from semis rumbling past. Letters, dozens, bundled with twine. Jake's, from before the co-op fall. Sis, need a loan. Dad's debts piling. Love, Jay. Forged checks, too, my signature practiced in his looping script. And at bottom, Dad's will, codicil hidden. Not just the house to me, solely to me with a clause, to protect from James's indiscretions. Indiscretions. The bribes, the flips, the Carter ties Dad had severed too late. Mama knew, covered, like I would. The betrayal deepened, retroactive, a chasm. Jake hadn't just sold the house, he'd stolen our truth. I burned the letters that night, back at the cabin, flames devouring ink in the stove's maw. But the codicil? Mailed to Klein anonymous. Controversial, exposing Dad's shade, dividing loyalties. Jake got wind via a collect call from some podunk jail. You outed him? After everything? Everything you buried. Static crackled. Come clean, or I drop the rest. He laughed hollow. Clean's a myth. Meet me. Neutral ground. Asheville. Art town. Tourist trap, neutral as snow. I arrived at the diner on a whim. Snow flurrying outside plate glass. He waited in a booth. Thinner. Beard scruffy. Probation bracelet glinting.
No hook.
We ordered. Coffee black. Pie untouched. The codicil. Why? Truth. I stirred sugar I didn't take. Dad cut you out for a reason. You knew. Suspected. He traced the table's grain. After his heart. Found papers. Thought it was bluff. Sold anyway, desperation. Desperation or spite? The question hung, divisive. You flipped on me, Jake. Again. Survival. His eyes met mine, pleading, proud. But you? Arming me that night, bailing me silent. That's love. Twisted, but real.
Love.
The word ignited debate in my chest. Right to forgive? Wrong to enable? What now? Testify full. Against the cousin's network. He slid a napkin, cords for a drop, evidence cash. Your move. I took it, fingers brushing. Siblings, severed but stitched. The climax loomed. Raid the drop or walk. I chose raid, called Rita, feds swarming a warehouse at midnight. Jake inside, wired, drawing fire. Shots exchanged, no kills, but close. He took a graze, shoulder blooming red, but the cash yielded. Hard drives, tying Carters to senators. In the ER as stitches pulled, he gripped my hand. Oh, you. Pay it by staying. Controversial plea. Chain the wolf, or free it. He nodded, weak. Ending teetered. Redemption's edge. Tragic if he bolts, happy if he bends. Blood argues both. Winter clamped the mountains in ice. The cabin a fortress of stacked cordwood and feral quiet. Jake's trial loomed. Federal courthouse in Atlanta. Spectacle of suits and stenographers. But he'd kept his word so far. Holed up in a halfway house under GBI watch. Prepping testimony with Klein's team. Rita visited for New Year's, bearing moonshine in a mason jar and news. He's solid.
No flips.
Cash blew the case wide. RICO indictments stacking like Jenga. Solid. I poured shots, the liquor burning sweet. Till he isn't. She clinked glasses, eyes sharp. Doubts your scar, save. Wear it. But don't let it fester.
Festa.
Like the journal, now half-filled, pages chronicling the arc, betrayal's bite, revenge's recoil, the gray where right warps wrong. The codicil drop had split the town. Dad vilified in op-eds as crooked co-op king, Jake lionized as whistleblower in whispers. Divisive as promised, folks picking sides, no heroes clean. Spring thawed the lies. Trial week, I drove down, testifying on the house sale, voice steady under fluorescence. Jake took the stand day 3, suit ill-fitting, recounting the flips. Co-op skim, Carter pressures, the Chattanooga feint. Jurors leaned in, faces a mosaic of skepticism and sympathy. Cross-exam shredded him. Admitted perjure, the defense sneered, but his eyes found mine across the room. Apology anchor. Verdict, guilty on lesser counts, time served plus restitution. Carter's? Life sentences, empires crumbled. Harlan threw a preservation party at the museum post-trial, ribbons on replicas, punch spiked with bourbon. Jake cornered me by the tunnel display, sling awkward. Free man.
Sorta. Sorta. I sipped punch, tort.
What's next?
Atlanta.
Desk job, security for the NPS. You? Cabin. Writing. Maybe visit. Lie, truth was flux, undecided. He hugged then, awkward, bone tight. Blood's debt paid. Debatable. The twist landed soft. A letter from Mama's box, overlooked, to both of us. Forgive the flaws. Build better. No mandates, just grace. We parted under magnolias, paths diverging. Happy? He thrives in suits, I in solitude. Revenges yield, bitter fruit. Tragic? Echoes linger, debates eternal. Mercy madness, or salvation seed. You judge.
Me?
I rock on the deck. Journal open. Pen poised. The story ends, but the telling? Endless.